All right, Phil here, and I hope you enjoyed those lessons with Will about product photography. I found them very fascinating myself. Now, there are some things that we could do to make our photos look even better by editing them. So, I'm going to be editing these photos in Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. We have a complete section on using this program later on in the course. So, if you don't know how to use Lightroom and you want to learn, you might want to go ahead and skip ahead to that section and learn before watching this lesson. If you're using another program, I will try to sort of keep the things I'm doing general enough, and I'm really only going to be making adjustments that you can do in pretty much any photo editing software out there. So let's dive in and make these photos look better. I'm going to be just making a general photo like this look better, and then I'm going to be showing you how to make this one look better by also removing these lines in the background from the plexiglass used to create this reflection. So the first thing that I always do with my photography when editing is crop them. So I'm going to use the crop tool in Lightroom here and crop it in. So I don't know exactly what size I want. I don't know if I want a square or a rectangle, but for now I'm just going to do a nice sort of rectangular shot that would probably look good on online. I will also rotate depending on what the background is just to straighten it out. When I click and rotate on the corners, you can see that there's a grid that helps you sort of align everything. And then press return on my keyboard to finish it up. All right, so there's a few things just with our basic exposure adjustments that we can do to make this better. And those are down here. You'll find these in most editors, but basically what you want to do is make the whites even whiter and then also build in a little more contrast with our colors. Actually, first thing first though, I want to set the white balance. Thankfully, since we have this big white backdrop in Lightroom, it's really easy. With this white balance color picker or eyedropper, I can just select on the background and it creates a perfect white balance. If you need to make another adjustment, you can tweak it with these temperature sliders, but with that color picker, it should work fine. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is play with the exposure. I'm going to boost the whites, and when I do that, you can see that the background starts to be pure white basically. So I'm going to boost that white. At the same time, I'm going to drop the highlights down a little bit. I'm going to drop the shadows down just a little bit, and also maybe the blacks just a little bit to bring back some of that contrast in our image. In terms of vibrance and saturation, I might boost the saturation just a little bit to get a little bit more color in our product. We can see the before after in Lightroom by pressing the backslash button, before after. So it's already looking a lot better. I want to do a little bit of touch up. This camera was actually a little bit dirty, so I'm going to zoom in here by clicking there, and then using our healing brush tool. We've got the healing brush tool. I can kind of remove these what I would call blemishes, which would be the kind of the same thing that you would do if you were removing something like pimples or something on a person. That looks good. Paint over there. So I'm just painting over these splotches and then using the clone brush to move things around. Now, remember, if you're not following along, please go ahead and watch the entire Lightroom section because we cover how to do all of these things in that section of this course. So that looks pretty good. There might be a little bit more that we can do up at the top, but for now, I'm going to leave it at that. Again, before, after, it's already looking pretty darn good. I'm going to go into the tone curve, and this is something that you can really do with product photography with a white background is adjust the white point. So at the bottom left and the bottom right, you have the black and the white point. So by clicking the white point in the top right and dragging it to the left, the whites become even whiter. So this is sort of a more dialed in way to adjust the whites up here. So by doing that, I might bring back the whites up here. And I might just bring down the exposure of the mids by dragging down this curve here, like so. Let's see the before, after. I might just go in and add a little bit of sharpening. Let's go down to the detail panel. We'll add a little bit of sharpening. It's already at a little bit more because we're using raw photos, and so that looks pretty good. And then the last thing I'll do is under effects, I'll add a highlight or a white vignette. So dragging the vignette to the right, it basically creates a vignette around the edges so that it's definitely pure white. And the reason why I want to do this is if I put this on a website with a white background, I think it looks really nice when the product images just basically blend into the background. And so you want to make sure that the edges are basically pure white. And you can do that with this sort of post-crop vignetting. If I drag to the left, you can see that it's a dark vignette. Dragging to the right creates a white vignette. And that's pretty much all I would do with this photo. Let's compare the before and after right here. So we got the before and after. It's just a little bit more punchier and a little bit more clean, and I like it a lot. All right, so let's get a little creative with our other edits. So we have these two images right here with the reflection. I'm gonna go ahead and use this image. I think I'm going to use this image right here. I like this one a little bit more. First, I'm going to crop it. So use my crop tool. I'm going to use my level tool here to level this line so that's perfectly straight. And that's looking a lot better. And then crop in, but I don't want to crop out the reflection necessarily. So I'm just going to crop in something like that. Cool, so now I'm going to play with my basic adjustments. Let's make sure our white balance is good by using our white balance color picker for the background. And then we'll play with our exposure. So I'm going to definitely boost my whites. So we want that white background up at the top to be pure white. Our shadows, I might boost the shadows a little bit to get, it's a little too contrasty for me. Our highlights, it really depends on what you want, but I'm gonna move it down. One thing I see down here at the top or at the bottom corner, I see the edge of the plexiglass. So I'm gonna try to crop in just a little bit so we don't see that. That's pretty good. I'm wondering what it would look like if I did just crop out part of the reflection. That might look even better and not worry about what's at the bottom of the frame. I think I liked it before. Maybe we can do a square aspect ratio for this one. Just like so. Yeah, that'll be good. That gets rid of that front of the plexiglass over there. Cool, so that's looking good. I'm going to play with the white point on the tone curve. Move it to the left a little bit. Let's grab it, there we go. So that the background is pure white. Then add a little bit of contrast, creating a little S curve, like so. Now I want to remove some of those blemishes, so I'm going to take my spot healing brush tool, zoom in here, paint over, I'm just going to go one go, paint over all of that. And that worked really well. Now I got to do the reflection as well. And that is amazing how awesome that works so quickly. Cool, so that's looking a lot better. Let's click done. Now I want to show you how you can remove this line in Lightroom. There's different ways you can do it, but the one that I like best is with the graduated filter tool. So click on this little rectangle, and then what we're going to do is click and drag right around here, and this middle line we want to go below this line in our image. If I turn on show selected mask overlay, that's O on our keyboard, you can see what is actually selected, this pink part, and that's what's going to be affected by our adjustment. Remember, if you don't know anything I'm talking about, then please watch the entire Lightroom section of this class. And this aspect of editing your photos might not be available in all other editing applications. So you might need a more professional tool like Lightroom. So this is our selected area, the pink, and we can adjust this by color basically with our range mask set to color. And now let's use this eyedropper to pick the white. And so now it's selecting all the white in this image, and we can use this amount to select less or more, basically. I'm going to select a little bit more so we get a little bit more of the gray down here. And then I'm also going to use our brush to erase the part of the image that is on our camera. I really don't want any of our camera to be selected and adjusted with the adjustments I'm going to be making right now. So I'm brushing out all of that right now everywhere. So the only thing that's selected is really the background, okay? So that's going to be pretty good. Let me turn off my Show Selected Mask overlay. And there's a couple things you can do. First, you can bring up the exposure, which starts, if you can see, if I continue to bring it up, it helps to get rid of that line eventually. And then I can also decrease the clarity and dehaze, or decrease the dehaze. Increasing the dehaze brings a lot of information back. Decreasing it makes it a little softer for the background. So if I move this down a little bit, you can see that it kind of adjusts where the fade is. Now let me click done so we can see better how it looks. So we see the before, after. It's a completely different shot. Now with this image, I don't want to necessarily add a white vignette because the bottom, I'm fine with it being a little bit darker. This bottom right corner is a little dark, so I might see what a vignette looks like. Hey, actually it looks pretty good. So I might add a bit of a vignette, make sure I feather it out so it definitely blends it in. Play around with where the midpoint is. I think feathering it out actually makes it look even better. So you do have a little bit of a darkness here in the middle on the sides. You could use the adjustment brush or something like that to bring that up. But for now, that was a quick edit of this photo with the reflection and getting rid of that line. And now with this photo, you would basically do the same process. It's just that the reflection won't be as strong, which actually might look a little bit better. I kind of like how this reflection is a little softer than the use of the blackboard below. But both of them are pretty good. So I'm going to go through and edit the rest of these photos that we shot while we had our Lightbox set up. And I'm sure that you've seen these in the videos earlier in this section. But these are just some of the basic practices for editing your product photos to make them look better. Basically, just bringing up the whites to make the white pure white, making sure the white balance is on, adding a little bit of contrast and saturation if you want so that your product really stands out. Now, I do want to show you one really cool tool in Lightroom. If you have an HSL adjustment, we can change the hue of a particular color by clicking hue, choosing this color picker. I'm going to choose that sort of teal of the Holga and drag up or down and see how we can adjust the color of the Holga that we're using. That's pretty cool, huh? So if you want a different color Holga product, you can use those hue adjustments to quickly change the color of your product. Cool, huh? Awesome. So I hope you've enjoyed this section of the class, and we can't wait to see the product photos that you take in the activity coming up.